Of course, if we talk about the importance of mask, of disguise, the character, the figure of the clown is absolutely central. The entertainer, the clown, the sad clown, the happy, the smiling clown is central. Or the notion of the mask, actually, you can look at it throughout the history of culture, and not only painting, but theater, carnival, festivals, cinema, and the circus. And the clown is always this kind of extremely ambiguous character. The clown is both funny and scary at the same time, but there is also a tradition of the clown, the tradition of what we call in French le fou du roi, the gesture, who actually, let's say in Versailles or in the court, a very important role, as actually still we can see today, like stand-up comics or caricaturists, or have one incredible attribute through their character, through the masquerade, through humor. They have the ability to speak truth to power. In the court in Versailles, the only one who was able to criticize the king was a gesture. And that's a very important role. And in a way, maybe with this portrait of gestures, there is also this idea of the artist as an entertainer, that Cindy Sherman is tongue-in-cheek looking at. But though there is also, again, because we just left the great master room, an history of painting that comes from this representation of the gesture. And one example would be Watteau's portrait of Pierrot, who is this disguised character. And again, the figure of the clown is still relevant today. You know, we have numerous film, movies, scary movies, where the threat comes from either a clown, like scary movie, horror movie called It, or the Joker, the figure of the Joker that speaks truth to power, who is the disruptive element of society. And we find that in these images by Cindy Sherman, where the characters are both funny, smiley, and extremely disturbing at the same time. And of course, if she looks at this portrait as a contemplation of the artist as the entertainer, as the gesture, there is also, again, tongue-in-cheek, little commentary, I think, on maybe her community and her peers, looking at this little character that the clown is holding here, this balloon dog or these balloon flowers. Think of an artist who's a friend of Cindy Sherman, but a major artist of her generation who was very well known to do this monumental balloon sculpture. Of course, the artist Jeff Koons, which is here, if it's the case, portrayed as, you know, this little dog in the hand of Cindy Sherman, this little dog with a very long and big tail. And maybe there is there also a commentary on how gender-oriented the art community can be. So, of course, if we talk about the history of portrait, of mask, the scope is quite broad, and as we saw, there is the carnival, there is the circus, there is the notion of mask as the social mask that we are always wearing, but there is also the notion of the death mask. And art history, again, is populated from the very, very beginning of representation of this notion of death mask. Actually, one could argue that the first portrait were death mask. What comes to mind would be what are called the Fayum portrait in Egypt, that were the first representation of the deceased, that were this wooden portrait, this portrait painted on wood plank that were on the top of sarcophagus. And if we talk about death mask, I think we can look at these images here by Cindy Sherman, which is a very somber images of a wounded, dismembered body. And even though there is a lot of humor in her work, humor is often a way to address very complicated topic, to laugh at the world because we don't want to cry about it. And the image behind, extremely disturbing image behind me, I think goes in this direction. First, the tone of the images, this kind of greenish color that can be a reference to the way in Renaissance painting the corpses were painted with this layer of greenish color that would depict the decay and decomposition of the flesh. It's a dismembered body. It's difficult actually to understand what is what, if the head is coming out, if it's an adult being born, like someone is giving birth to a fully shaped adult body. On the other hand, you have an eye which is sticking up at the top of the image that suggests that the body is actually dismembered, and you have also this cut here, this open wound. And in many ways also this image might be as a surrealistic character, this idea of an image coming out of the unconscious, coming out of a bad dream. Body, flesh, body fluids, and we'll see that a little bit later in the exhibition. Sexuality is also an important aspect of Cindy Sherman's work, and it's not only for the sake of using a stereotype of representation. If we look at portrait, if we look at the way bodies, male or female body, have been represented from the history of painting to popular media, sexuality is part of it, and we will see even that pornography is part of it.